Today we're looking at that interesting subject, managing your boss. And I can hear some bosses say, "Who? Nobody can manage me." But I'm just hearing also some workers who will say, "Me? Manage my boss, not me." So here we are, hands off, it seems like, from both sides.
Indeed. Now, the thing is, whether relationships require two people to be involved at least, right? So, how you show up in the relationship will determine in large part how well the relationship works for you.
Hmm.
So, if you show up in the relationship thinking, I'm powerless, I can't manage my boss, so whatever they do, that's what I have to go with. But think about any relationship, even if you're looking at a parent child relationship, the child has an impact on the quality of the relationship based
True.
on how they grow up. So it's not about controlling your boss, but it's about the dynamic that's created because a relationship is like a dance. Each person has steps in the dance.
Hmm.
So for the dance pattern to change, either person can change their steps and then the other person has to adapt, adjust, or else you're going to be stepping on each other's toes all the time.
That's such a beautiful analogy to give, in expressing what that is. You're so right, And sometimes in the dance, one person steps forward, the other one steps back, but you do so in unison. Because if you don't do that under agreement and in unison, someone is going to be trampled. And that's
Exactly.
so critical that we understand those dynamics as well. You start in the chapter by saying, when your boss listens to you carefully, reaches out to help you, and learns from you, it enhances your dignity and pride. Again, back to relationship. But it starts with listening. You got to hear. You have to hear. And oftentimes we spend so much time on the verbal, but we don't hear all the rest at all.
And even when we're not speaking, it's as if we're just waiting for an opportunity to speak,
Speak.
as opposed to listening to understand. We're just waiting for an opportunity to respond or even
Hmm.
react.
And that is not good for any relationship, be it in the workplace or at home, privately as well.
Yes.
It's to be able to listen with the idea that you want to hear and to understand, not just to simply say, "Oh well, I just waited till you finished so I could tell you." No, that's not how it works. And so this one about managing your boss, let's bring this to the workplace because you gave some analogies of real life experiences in the chapter that I found not just amusing, but also quite inspiring because they were so real and they were yours. So, do you mind sharing
Yes.
some so that we get to understand when we talk about managing your boss, what that's about?
Right. So the first story that I shared years ago, I was on the verge of being unemployed because I was just finishing up a fixed term contract. And the managing director called me in and made me an offer, but there was nothing about that offer that I found appealing. This
Hmm.
was before I became an HR practitioner. I was a generalist at that time, project manager, I'd been a general manager. And he wanted me to come on board and set up an HR department for a conglomerate that at the time had only personnel administration. So monitoring sick leave, vacation, doing payroll. I hate routine. So the thought of presiding over that, I mean, I was like, oh, kill me now. But then I decided, okay, let find out exactly what it is he wants to accomplish. Because the
Yes.
fact that he wanted to change that into HR, that was somewhat encouraging.
Hmm.
And so he gave me, through the conversation, I was able to identify three specific deliverables that would constitute success from his perspective. And based on what he outlined, I knew I could do that.
Hmm.
And so I made a counter proposal. Here's where I managed up. Now, remember, I'm on the verge of being unemployed, not
Hmm.
exactly in a position of power. But I understood that he needed me, or at least someone who could deliver those three objectives.
Right.
Could I be the person? And I said, okay, yes, I can do that for you. Within 3 years, you can have all of that done. What I would need from you in return, though. And so I then crafted a job that wouldn't make me want to slit my wrist. So instead of just doing HR, could I do strategic development? He
Yes.
said yes. I said, okay, some tough choices are going to have to be made. including terminating some people because the culture here sucks, bottom
Mm-hmm.
line. And we have to send a very visible, very tangible sign that it's not business as usual. Will you back me up? I promise not to abuse it. I'm not going to go crazy on you. But when I come to you and say, listen, this is what we need to do, I need you to trust me and trust the process and go along with it. And the third thing I asked him about was, listen, so I'm going to give you these three things in 3 years. After that, I don't want to do HR anymore, but I do want to do strategic development. Would
Yes.
you agree? So he knew he was going to get what he wanted. The three things I asked him for, they weren't that difficult. So
Mm-hmm.
he says, okay, yes. And I said, if I don't deliver, you won't have to fire me. I will leave on my own. Right. And so I managed up. I got what I wanted. He got what he wanted. And I ended up staying there for 7.5 years.
Joe, when I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, parallels, again, parallels. I'll share a little bit
Yes.
too, since you shared. When I came here to the CBC, I was in media just a little while before that. And I came here on a 3-year contract. 3 years. 3 years, Joe. I said, I'm not spending another moment thereafter. And, interestingly enough, an offer was then made to consider something else. And I thought,
Mhm.
really, I would rather do this other thing. And I had the
Right.
opportunity then to craft that other thing. And I was given all the support I needed because that's what I said. And I'm that kind of guy. I would be very direct. I would say to you, I'll do this for you, but I need XYZ. That is Pearson Boy to a T. So I was very
Mhm.
much like you in setting my conditions, and we met all of those conditions. And that's what's
Yeah.
been happening. Even in doing this, this is not my substantive job, but it's something I said I'll happily do, provided X, Y, and Z. And so that
Right.
quid pro quo occurs, and we are getting the best, I believe, of both worlds. And that's so important when it comes to managing up, that you're one, respectful as well. You
Yes.
understand what the task is ahead of you, and you can compromise if you have to compromise, but focus on what it is that you're to achieve. You went on to say establish mutual expectations. We saw that in your experience as well.
Yes. And mutual is the operative word there because we all get it intuitively that we have to do what the boss, what the employer wants us to do. But the thing is, we need to communicate as well what it is that we need in
Mm-hmm.
order to be at our most productive, in order to be truly engaged. And don't make the mistake of thinking that it's just about money, it's just
Correct.
about hours, right? It's about what it requires for you to operate in a way that is good for you and is good for the organization. So, for example, in that same chapter, I talk about when I worked with Prime Minister Baldwin Spencer in
Yes.
Antigua and Barbuda. I was his chief implementation officer. So he brought me on board specifically to champion certain projects that he wasn't comfortable just leaving to chance. He wanted these things to be part of his legacy. Now, for me to be able to execute, to implement what he wanted, I needed to understand the man. I need to understand how does he process information because I like to write. So I could be
Mm-hmm.
there writing these beautiful flowing reports. But what I found out, PM Spencer, if it was he couldn't get the gist of what you were saying in one page, he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to page two. So I needed within the first paragraph or two to catch his attention, to convey to him this is important, this is something that you need to understand and appreciate. And so by getting to understand how he preferred to receive information, how he processed information, then I became of greater value to him to the
Mm-hmm.
point where, I mean, and the man was crazy busy. He was running a country at the time of the
Yes.
global financial crisis. And Antigua had the compounded effect when Stanford, that
Yes.
empire
Yes.
collapsed as well. And we had people buy code. So there was a lot going on. So if I wanted FaceTime with him, I had to be very convincing that one, I'm not going to waste your time. Two, I'm going to get in, give, whatever it is I have to say and be out of there in a matter of minutes. So when I would call over to the secretariat, because my office was across the hall from him, I said, let the PM know I need a few minutes with him. They say, oh, PM busy today. He doesn't have any. I said, just let him know. I need a few minutes.
Yes.
And they will call me and say, okay, PM says, come now. So they're like, how come he always see you and he always tell us not to bring in so many others? I said, because I stick to my word. If I tell him I'm going to be only a few minutes, and he
Yes.
knows I'm not just coming to palaver, I'm coming with something that needs a decision or to give him a heads up so he doesn't get blindsided.
Yes. And that's so important. So that leads right into living up to your commitments as well. You know, you
Yes.
made a commitment to him, he agrees with your commitment, and you are following through on those kinds of things. And this is the method by which I'll operate. These are the outcomes that we have
Yes.
agreed and I will deliver. And it's to be able to not to let your words be true, basically, in other words, to let your words be true. Don't just waft your way through the agreement, as some people would tend to do just for security. It's much more than that. Let your words live for what they truly are meant to be.
Indeed. Because once you lose that personal credibility, and it goes back to what we talked about with trust.
Yeah.
And when you breach the trust, how difficult, if not impossible, it can be to, rekindle it.
hmm You go on then to say, it's not about you. And that one is in bold. When you say that, what are you trying to say to me?
Listen, so many of my coaching clients, they come to me and they spend the time lamenting about this horrible boss that they have. And I was like, okay, well, here's the thing. I can sit here and listen to you talk about your horrible boss, but it's not your horrible boss that's paying me, it's you. So you want to spend the time talking about him or her, or you want us to work on things that will help you? Because we don't control other people. And
Yes.
people doubt this, but listen, your boss doesn't wake up every day and say, how can I make this? They have their own stuff going on, right? And that's another reason why it's important for you to take the time to make the investment to get to understand your boss. Because going back to PM Spencer, if he came in and I find, well, PM talked to me kind of rough today, I had to let it go. The man had other things going on, other things that he needed to concern himself. So it doesn't make sense for me to get all caught up in my feelings and think that, oh, he's just being mean to me. He doesn't care about me. What a horrible boss. Get over it. Move on.
hmm
Right? And even if in the unlikely event that, yes, you just have a boss who gets up thinking, what can I do to make Pearson miserable today? Why would you give that more energy by dwelling
True.
on it?
So
So
true. And you
it's
say,
not about you,
yeah,
move
that's
on.
it. That's exactly where it was going. You said that's what it's about. And you went on to say, you are never responsible for the actions of others. You are only responsible for you. When you truly understand this and refuse to take things personally, you can hardly be hurt by the careless comments or actions of others. That is so true, Joan. So very true. So then, how to make difficult people disappear? Whoosh. How do we do that?
If it was so easy, boy, it would be like the rapture.
You
People would
know?
just be disappearing.
So how do we do it?
Yes, it's about, again, it's what you can control. It's about your mindset. Okay, because I have had more than my share of not just difficult but bad bosses. I mean, people with no moral compass, people
Yes.
who just their humanity. You wondered what happened to you as a child. Why would you show up like this?
hmm
And at first, I used to just stress over it, and I mean, really agonizing. Oh God, I have to interact with him today, and so on. It came to the point where, and reading this book, How to Make Difficult People Disappear, was the breakthrough for me. And the only way to make them disappear is to change your mindset, to change your attitude towards them. And it's about expectations. So if you have an expectation that this person is going to be honest, they're going to be kind, they're going to be compassionate, when that's not in their DNA, you're going to get disappointed, you're going to get upset, you're going to get stressed out with every interaction.
hmm
However, when you realize that your expectations of them may not be part of the way of navigating the world. And I use the metaphor of different breeds of dogs to illustrate the point. So I love the Doberman breed. I used to raise Dobies.
Okay.
And so they have certain traits. First of all, they're just absolutely gorgeous. They're fiercely loyal. They have this strong protective drive because my dogs used to be trained to do protection work. And then my sister, not being a dog person and not understanding that not all dogs are dogs in the same
Yes.
way, she went and bought me this little toy thing that all it did was just yap, 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 yap. Now, Dobbies don't bark unless they need to draw your attention to something. There's some sort of danger or, something
Hmm.
out of sort. So there wasn't a lot of barking in my household
Right.
until this little dog showed up as my birthday gift. I mean, she really thought she was doing something nice.
Yes.
But it would just get on my nerves. And, so I was really not liking this dog at all. And
Mhm.
then I decided, you know what? Try and figure out what you can appreciate about this dog. I mean, she was nice and fluffy, so her coat felt nice. Doggies don't have
Yes.
much hair, so I didn't get that from them. And she loved to cuddle. Now, by the time my doggies reached a certain point, I couldn't put them in my lap anymore.
Hmm.
But with this little dog, I could be watching TV. I'd have Adobe under my feet because they would lie at my feet and let me
Yes.
use them as a footrest. And then this little dog would be in my lap and she would be there just to cuddle. And so that was nice. So then I had different expectations of her
Expectations.
and the relationship shifted. So
So
the difficult dog disappeared because I stopped expecting her to be what she wasn't or couldn't
that's
be.
right. You change your expectations, you change your outlook, and you can change the boss as well. But thank you so much, Joan. This is such a wonderful chapter, which concludes our section where we looked at managing others. We've done managing self, managing others. Next week, we'll start managing processes and systems. This is going to be interesting. Joan, as
Oh,
always,
yeah.
thank you so much for joining us.